Hey everyone, my name is Corey Jewett, and we are here for another edition of Gettysburg Great Moments. And this week, we continue on with the Bullets Wrestling program. And joining me today is the one and only Paul Triandafilou, graduate from 2019, former Gettysburg great, and we are here to talk about his trip to the national stage in 2016. Paul, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago that you were out there on the mat, but it's been 2 years since you graduated. What have you been up to since that time?
So right out of school, I went back to actually my high school and spent a year with their alumni service corps, and it basically entailed going on a bunch of service trips with the kids, working in the dorms, and then during after-school programs, we'd run a tutoring program for some of the kids that were struggling a little bit. And I got an opportunity to coach a little bit, and I'll say I have all the respect in the world for guys like Coach Gino Stakes and Coach Vogel and all the other coaches at Gettysburg, because I was tough, but it was a lot of fun. Right now I'm working in DC at Anheuser-Busch wholesaler.
Oh, that's great. So, of course, you're from the DC area, and you went to Georgetown Prep as well. Should mention that. Also the alma mater of alums Matt Laux and Colin Kowalski, who I'm sure we'll mention Colin's name a couple of times in today's conversation too. So, Paul, I remember it seems like yesterday that you were in your freshman year. I was out there with you on the football field to start that year, that 2015 fall season. And you came in a little late to the wrestling season too, but man, did you just take off. That freshman season, it was just phenomenal to watch you go out there. Talk a little bit about that whole first year on campus and kind of how that prepared you for nationals. And did you have any favorite moments during your run there?
I'll say honestly, first of all the credit goes to my teammates and Coach Vogel. Previously to Gettysburg, I played sports every season, sometimes two, and I figured I could go to college and do two with no problem. I remember the first practice that I had to leave practice earlier. I told Coach that I wasn't feeling well, but I didn't tell him the whole story. I went into the locker room and threw up for a while because I was just so out of shape from football. And then I remember, I think it was like a week or two after that, Coach Vogel took us all. We were at the McDaniel duels, if I believe. And I wasn't expecting to wrestle. And then he just kind of said, hey, I got an exhibition match for you. And it was my first match, and that might have been one of the toughest matches that I've ever had in my life.
Well, you adjusted very quickly, I would have to say. I mean, you won your first 21 matches, I believe, that season. So you more than held your own after, recovering from that first week or so of conditioning. And, of course, you went into conferences, suffered a little bit of an upset in the conference semifinals, I believe. So you're denied that conference championship. That was your first loss in the year. But then you finished up at regionals against, what might be one of the best Division III wrestlers ever, and Zach Rosenberry from Delaware Valley too. So did you feel like going into nationals, you had a good amount of momentum?
Yeah, definitely. After the Centennial Conference, I was a little down, but I think that just kind of goes back to my earlier point mentioning Coach Vogel. I don't think he gets enough credit, but he's really good at handling the mental aspects of the sport. He might not be the loudest guy during the match, but he knows exactly what to say, when to give you space, and when to push you. I'm sure if you have an interview with him right after this, he can tell you that I was a little bit stubborn at times in the room, and outside the room, people might say the same things. But just having the motivation of the coaches and the support of the team, and then having a match with some of those guys like Zach, that kind of gave me the motivation. It's like, okay, like I can kind of do this. I kind of went into regionals. I'm going to go out there and do my best. Try not to go 0-2 and see what happens my first year. And I just kind of built a little momentum. And I remember it was a pretty happy moment, just kind of talking to my parents when we got to talk about the fact that we were going to get to go. And I remember my dad, just the look on my dad's face when I got to see him, and just hearing his voice on the phone, that kind of meant the most.
And of course, nationals that year was at the U.S. Cellular Center in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So, Paul, tell me what it was like walking into that building. Now, I know you guys practiced a little bit on the mats prior to the grand entrance, we'll call it, where you're holding the Gettysburg sign. I know Coach Vogel and Coach Frank were both out there too. What was that experience like?
Honestly, it was a crazy experience, something that I'll never forget, and I was really blessed to have. I think stepping on the mats, because the D3 guys get the old D1 mats, but those mats are only used like once, and the softest mats in the world. And then just like, I mean, I don't know. Some people might have certain opinions about D3 sports here and there, and they just think, oh, you just go to have fun and do other things and go to school. But when I went there, I'll to bring it back, I'll honestly say that might have been my mentality a little bit coming out of senior year of high school. But stepping on that mat, walking out there, hearing them announce my school and my name, and just like hearing that crowd, it was very surreal. And it made me appreciate the opportunity that I had to go wrestle for 4 years.
So you mentioned the announcement of your name, and we were making light of this before we went on air here. Did they pronounce your last name correctly at nationals?
Not too many people do, so I can't get too mad at them for that.
It took me 3 years, I think, before I got it down. I just kind of messed up the syllables there, the vowels for some reason. But we got it by the end. We were good on senior day and every other duel from your junior year on, I think. So you're there at nationals and you're competing against the best heavyweights in all of Division III. Now, during the course of the season, you, of course, wrestled some great heavyweights out there too, but there were some that weren't quite up to your level too that you easily dispatched. But at nationals, everybody's good. Everybody's there for a reason. What was your strategy going in against these guys? I mean, you've got heavyweights of all different shapes and sizes at this thing too. Some that are just monsters at 6'5", near that 260, 275 threshold. And, you know, you got to change your strategy for each guy more or less.
I think the comment you just said lastly about changing your strategy was pretty much on point. If you watch a lot of my matches, some of them aren't too interesting because I like to take it slow sometimes and then strike when another guy's tired. But going into nationals, the first round, I didn't have too much trouble. But then the round after that was when I kind of woke up to the fact that, oh, these guys are pretty real. I remember I dove in trying to take a shot like a lightweight because I think I've been watching too much of Kowalski wrestling or something. And the next thing I knew, I was on my back and pinned. And I was upset, and I kind of went back to the warm-up area. And then that's kind of when Vogel kind of said, you didn't have to say too much to me, but just basically like, all right, like, collect yourself and go back out there. So I think the main thing was to make all the shots count, make all the moves count. Don't get tired, you know. And then just really focus on what you're doing and try to win the mental battle. I think that's one thing that's kind of overlooked from when you're looking on from an outside lens on wrestling. So it's a lot of physical aspects, but if you can break the other guy's mental constraints, then you can kind of coast for the rest of the match there.
Yeah, for sure. In a tournament like nationals, I mean, you've got another shot. You've always got another shot until you lose two. So you had to go out there and you had to get back into that right mindset. So you mentioned your loss. You lost to Lance Evans from Wartburg, which Wartburg is one of the top Division III programs in the country, of course, and Evans himself would finish third at this event. And then after that loss, you're lined up and it's do or die. You win and you advance to day two. You lose, you come home to Gettysburg, and you're lined up with Mike Spencer from York College. You won the match 4-1. That had to have been just a great feeling. I mean, what were your immediate thoughts when your hand was raised?
Honestly, just back to everything is just I was thankful, and I was happy. I mean, for lack of a better word, just happiness right there and joy. We put in a lot of work in the weeks before and the whole season. I thought about all the people that were watching me. I had a bunch of high school friends and friends from freshman year that were sending me text messages that they were watching, which honestly made me a little nervous at the beginning of the matches, you know, getting pictures of me after the matches. But, you know, I had all these people supporting me, and I didn't want to let them down.
And of course, by winning that match, that automatically moves you into the second day, puts you among the top 8. You got All-America status, but obviously you're not going to settle for just being an All-American and finishing no worse than 8th. So the next day you're lined up against Connor Herman, 10th ranked wrestler from Luther, and you gut out a tiebreaker 5-4. Going into that second day, were you trying to maintain the same strategy that you had for the opening day as well, or did you kind of switch things, knowing some of the wrestlers that were still out there waiting for you?
Honestly, my only goal was to finish as high as I could. I don't like losing. I never liked losing. And I knew that I had made the All-American status at that point, but I just wanted to see how far I could push myself.
And of course, in that 5th place match, you were lined up against a familiar foe in Jason Wright from Messiah College. You opened up the tournament against Jason. You saw him earlier in the season. We wrestled Messiah consistently, whether it's at the Petrophus or the Messiah Invite or in our duel with Messiah too. So you're well acquainted with Jason Wright. What was the strategy going into him? What was the big move that kind of sealed the deal? I think it was a takedown late in the second or third period, right?
Yeah. Whenever I wrestled him after I think the third time it was, still in the regular season, just kind of got tough because I believe he was a senior and I was a freshman. And the first time I wrestled him, I was just super intimidated. He's a big dude. He'd been there longer than me, more experience. But after a while, we kind of knew what each other were doing. So some of the skill stuff kind of was just like button heads. And it was just going back to that mental point where, can I block your shot this many times before I can break you? And then can I outlast your stamina? That was another good thing where Coach Vogel kind of got me prepared, making me run extra sprints here and there, making sure I was doing the drills all the way. Sometimes Puka and I in the corner, we would slack off. But I think I got a single leg and just heard Coach Vogel and Coach Gino telling me not to let go of it. And I think that was it. And I was happy with it.
Yeah, you get that win in the 5th place match. Then you're standing on the podium right next to all the other great wrestlers. Some of them, like you said, were seniors like Jason Wright. Rosenberry was up there. Evans, guys that you would face and held your own against too. How did you feel overall about your performance at the national meet? And how did you feel knowing that you're the first All-American heavyweight in program history? We've had some really, really good heavyweights out there too. Guys like Mike Patanite, Kevin Poplaski, going way back, Glenn Faust, and among many others too.
I hate to keep repeating myself here, but honestly, just very lucky, happy, blessed, and then ready to get on that plane ride and go home. Honestly, I was ready to get out of there.
Yeah, I remember trying to reach out to you and Coach Vogel. Andy was able to get back to me fairly quickly, but he said you had passed out either on the bus or on the plane. So no quotes from Paul in that story, in that recap, but plenty from Coach Vogel. Just to kind of recap your career for the people at home, this was really just the tip of the iceberg for you. You won 3 conference titles. You had 121 wins, second all time, only to Jake Dale, most among heavyweights by 31, which, that's a full season for any wrestler. You have 11 individual tournament wins. You won the Messiah Petrophus 3 times. One of those times you beat the number 1 ranked wrestler in the country, who went on to win the national title that year as well. Jake Evans from Waynesburg, I believe. And, of course, you were the Chris Clifford Award winner, too, which is given to the senior that accumulates the most points at the Centennial Conference Championships. So, you had an awesome career. It was fun for me just watching you out there. I kind of knew what was going to happen almost every time you went out there. It was going to be a win of some sort. But, for you being at Gettysburg for 4 years, doing everything you did, wrestling with the guys that you wrestled with, you mentioned Puka, you got Ebert, Colin Kowalski, Lou Carasillo, all of our favorite people, Paul. What was it like, that experience wrestling for Gettysburg College?
Honestly, it was great. I think a lot of people see wrestling and they just kind of see us looking like psychos on the side of the mat. I think in your background, you probably have plenty of photos of me screaming cheering on my teammates. Honestly, that's the best part of it. Wrestling matches are fun, but seeing your teammates succeed, those are some of the best memories. I mean, I remember when Kowalski punched his ticket. I think that was probably one of the best memories I had there. And then just a lot of the bus rides. The bus rides were always special. Jake Bracken always made sure we had a good time on the bus. I remember one time he brought Uno, and we always made sure, just me and him, we'd cheat the other guys, making sure that one of us would end up the winner. Winter break, stuff like that, where it's tough. You got to come back early from your break, and it's just kind of us on campus hanging out with each other, walking to the brain miserable, but just being miserable together, being happy together, spending all that time together. That's honestly what I'll remember. The matches, those will leave my mind first probably, but the people, that's what I'm really grateful for.
Yeah, I definitely want to point out, we're all in the gym. We all know you're coming up last. Heavyweights always wrestle last. And you are paying attention on the edge of your seat for at least the first 6-7 matches before you throw your headphones on and get in your zone before your match. And even then, you could always count on. I know I would watch you pacing behind the bench like a lion waiting for your prey. You were always watching to see what Ebert, what Puka were doing at 97, or KM if he was wrestling at 97 too. So you were definitely one of the great teammates. I have one final parting question for you. Just any words of advice for anybody that is looking to go and wrestle at Gettysburg?
I would say first thing to do, maybe you can't do this with COVID, but have a sit down with Gino Stakes. Honestly, that man is one of a kind. And if that man doesn't sell you just in that short conversation, maybe it's not the place for you. But honestly, talk to the guys. I know that the guys are still there. They're a great group. I think that's one thing just that continually just gets passed on because it's a community of love. Walk around the campus. When I first visited Gettysburg, I think my mom had to drag me up there. It wasn't a place I was really looking at. I think I probably wanted to stay local or, it was mostly stay local. And I went up there and it was just a beautiful day on the campus. And I think that really caught my eye. And then I got to meet some of the people. Matt Laux did a great job kind of hooking me in there. He's a good at selling things. And then ask people about the community because, you're not going to be wrestling the whole time. But I think the community is one part just with my teammates that I won't ever forget. I remember what made freshman year and the rest of the year so special was all the people that really cared about the athletes and cared about what you're doing inside and outside of the court, the mat, the field, and everything else. I remember my guy Phil in the omelet line, Lisa in the omelet line, Phil always would have great conversations with them, just asking how they're doing, and they genuinely care to ask how you are doing back. So I think those are the little things that make that place special.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. And I think those are great parting words. I know I had a chance to talk to Gino the other day, and he definitely misses grappling with you in the corner as well. He said he really missed that. Actually, it was more like he got tired of being thrown around by you, but, I think he missed it in general anyways. So, Paul,
if you get a chance, remind him he still owes me a trip to Cheesecake Factory. He promised me that. So if you're watching this, Gino, I'm cashing in on that.
I'll be sure to spread the message to him if he doesn't see this video. But I would imagine he'll be interested in this for sure. So, Paul, that's all I had for you. I'm so glad that we could touch base, talk about this trip to nationals your freshman year. As I said before, congrats on an outstanding career at Gettysburg. I'm excited to see what you're doing out there back home. Excited to see what you do in the future too. And whenever you're back in town, buddy, I got a seat for you up in the press box. Although I think you'd probably want to be closer to the bench and the mat to cheer on the Bullets out there wrestling too. So you're always welcome back into town.
Thank you.
So, all right. Well, that does it for Paul Triandafilou. And my name is Corey Jewett signing off for this week's edition of Gettysburg Great Moments.